Okay, I think we'll get started. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being on this webinar called When War is Routine, Stepping Up During Sustained Crisis. I know most of you on the webinar, but I'm Charlene Seidel. I'm the President and Chief Philanthropy Officer of the Jewish Community Foundation and also the President and CEO of the Leach Tag Foundation. I'm actually here in Jerusalem at the moment, and so very, very grateful that all of you are taking the time to join us for the next hour in a conversation with two amazing civil society leaders, real leaders, who have been working tirelessly in like an ongoing emergency setting, and we're going to talk more about that. I wanted to say before we officially started that today was an interesting example in Jerusalem and in the rest of the country, in the center of the country more so, but in Jerusalem even, which usually tends to be more quiet, of an emergency routine. Because that's kind of the focus of today. We had a number of sirens and pre-alerts, at least like 7 pre-alerts and a few episodes of sirens during the day of missiles being headed towards Israel. And the rest of the country had even more, including in the north. It's a very intense time. And in terms of the theme of the emergency routine, it was amazing to me how, and we were just talking about this, but even in my own office in Jerusalem, we went into the shelter and we came back and we resumed our meetings. And I texted somebody I was going to be 10 minutes late, but because I was in a shelter and they were actually on the side of the road because they had been driving, and we just moved on. And there's a lot to say about how that impacts a society, but what we're going to focus on today is the action and the volunteerism and the sense of agency that I think has been inspired in many ways by what's really become a routine emergency since October 7th, and certainly in the last month, even more so. Um, so I want to just give you a sense of the arc of the program. The first part of our session, the first 40 minutes or so, I'm going to be in conversation with Rachel Azaria and Tomer Dror, who I'll introduce officially in a minute. They're really incredible partners, civil society leaders. And then we've reserved the final 15 minutes or so for a up-to-date situational like update and briefing about what's really going on in the ground by a leading professor who was one of our Murray Gallanson San Diego Israel Initiative, our partner on this webinar, visiting professors, and who is a professor of political science at Tel Aviv University, Dr. Udi Summer. We're very, very grateful that he's joining us at the end to give a briefing, and he's going to be introduced by our Murray Gallanson San Diego Israel Initiative Director towards the end, Susan Lapidus. I do want to say that if we do get a pre-alert that there's a siren, it means that there'll be about 5 minutes before we know if there's a siren. So I'll give you a heads up if we do get that pre-alert. And then if there is the siren, we'll likely have to end the webinar. But we'll hope for the best. We'll hope for some quiet, and you'll get a real life immersion into what it's like with when war becomes routine. Um, so I just want to start by giving a quick introduction and just a short bios for each of Tomer and Rachel. I've known both of them for over a decade. They are been close partners at Leashtag in building our Jerusalem programs. Tomer was a founder of the Jerusalem model, and Rachel was on the Jerusalem City Council at the time and gave a lot of valuable advice as we built the program, which really aims to uplift from the bottom up civil society grassroots leaders in Jerusalem. And then after October 7th, as that took on a countrywide scale, each of them has played important leadership roles in really critical areas. So Tomer Dror is the CEO of Lev Echad, which is one of Israel's leading civilian emergency response organizations. Since October 2023, Tomer has led one of the largest civilian mobilization efforts in Israel's history, activating more than 120,000 volunteers. You're going to hear more about that. In the current war with Iran and its proxies, thousands of volunteers are deployed daily, supporting families impacted by missile attacks, restoring damaged homes, assisting evacuated communities, and running resilience community activities for children in high-risk areas. And I can say that Lev Echad is one of the most highly thought of, excellent organizations that are just in the field, really, really responsive to the need at any given time. So thank you, Tomer, for joining us. Rachel Azaria is the founder and CEO of Ha'ogen, which means the anchor in Hebrew for reservist families. And I think the area of the families of the Miluim, of the reservist soldiers who have been called up for hundreds and hundreds of days, and now more than 100,000, well over, have been called up again for war. Um, the story of their families and the disruption and the way that it affects family life and roles is a story that, in my view, cannot be told enough and can't be amplified enough, because it's going to be it's a fundamental area of this war and of life since October 7th. Ha'ogen now supports 40,000 reservist families through a network of 20,000 volunteers. And Rachel comes from a background, not only was she a city councilwoman and the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, she later served as a member of the Knesset, Israel's parliament, and has spearheaded more than 50 successful social change initiatives across environmental policy, gender equality, early childhood, and religion and state. So with that, I'm gonna just launch in. We're gonna have a conversation for about 40 minutes, and then, as I said, Dr. Summer will give his briefing. So, October 7th clearly was one of the most horrifying and tragic days in the existence of Israel and the Jewish people. And at the same time, as we saw, I've said this to so many people, and I really believe it. On October 7th, I feel like we saw the worst of humanity, and I felt at my lowest, maybe. I mean, and by the end of October 7th, and certainly on October 8th and beyond, we started to see the best of humanity as civilians stepped up in Israel to fill every need, to house people, to comfort the bereaved, to organize funerals, to dig graves, to care for our reservist families, to step up and go to military service, and on and on and on. And October 7th, it also saw an incredible surge that really I don't think has diminished, kind of like a civilian draft, where Israeli society of all sectors and demographics understood, I think, their place in that society in a time of a lot of division. We know prior to October 7th, there had been almost a cold civil war, like developing in Israel over matters related to the role of the Supreme Court and the judiciary, and matters that we won't be mentioning today. But it makes this grassroots, bottom-up change just an incredible example of how civilians can take back control, can take back agency, and can really make a difference and can really make an influence. And it's a story that not only Israelis are part of, but I really believe that Jews around the world, and I know so many people in San Diego that stepped up in their ways to donate money, to donate supplies, to volunteer, to they reached out to Israelis like on the ground, and all of that was really quite a dramatic transformation, even in the relationship. So Lev Echad and Ha'ogen are both examples of volunteer-based initiatives that had existed in some form prior to October 7th, but have really transformed now to become major forces. Lev Echad, as I mentioned, is now a central anchor in strengthening civilian resilience, supporting vulnerable populations, and really serving communities affected by crisis. And Ha'ogen, as I mentioned, is literally, spiritually, and psychologically the anchor of for tens of thousands of reservist families. So I want to ask each of Tomer and Rachel, first Tomer, then Rachel, just to briefly share this story of pre-October 7th, post-October 7th, and the transformation sort of maybe leading us to today in 5 minutes or less, each of you. So it's a lot to share in a short time. So Tomer?
Thank you, Charlene. It will be the shortest presentation I ever did, so I'll try to be as short as possible. October 7, I'm at my house and everything is starting. Prior to October 7, Lev Echad is in Ukraine, and I'll go into details in a minute, but I'm in my house with my 4 children and wife, and the alarms are starting and everything is, and we understand there is an emergency, and already at 9 a.m. the first, maybe I'll say that before, we started Lev Echad 21 years ago, with the understanding that this kind of an emergency and crisis might happen and might come to Israel, and we need to be ready in the civilian home front. So 2 hours into the war, the first people of Lev Echad are in the Gaza envelope rescuing people. 4 hours into the war, we have the first four emergency command rooms in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Beersheba, responding to every need that comes from the field. 48 hours into the war, we have 18 different command centers from Ramat Golan in the upper north of Israel supporting the soldiers to Elat supporting the evacuees that were evacuated from their houses. Everything collapsed in Israel in October 7. It's the most desperate time of this country. And with a few different decisions of our enemies, the state of Israel might have been totally destroyed. But one thing revived, or I'm not sure what will be the right English word, during October 7, and it's the people of Israel in all fields. One field was the people that went to be reservists, and the other field were the volunteers who showed up everywhere. So the people of Israel showed up while the government and the military and all the forces collapsed. I lost one of my commanders on October 7. One of my squad members was injured on October 7, and many of my friends were injured or killed on October 7, but I didn't cry on that day. The first time that I cried since October 7 was October 13, when I went with my deputy to a hotel in Netanya, a hotel of evacuees. And the reason I cried is that what I saw there was desperate people with no hope, the exact same people that I saw less than 1 year before in Krakow and in Lviv, the Ukrainian refugees that we were helping as Lev Echad in Ukraine. And when we went to help them in Ukraine, we went with the belief that the state of Israel is so strong and so big that this kind of thing will never happen to us. But what I saw in October 13 in Netanya, I saw that it happened to us, and I was broken by it, and I cried like a little baby from the understanding that my country failed that bad. But I got my smile back less than 10 days after. And I'm telling this story to explain what Lev Echad is doing. Because the mission of Lev Echad is to restore the Israeli smile and to rebuild the Israeli resilience and the Israeli country by mobilizing volunteers. And on October 22nd, I received a message from Einav, a friend of mine that lives in Kibbutz Nir Am. It was a photo message. At the beginning, I couldn't understand it. It was just a photo of a young girl and two volunteers holding her back, volunteers with a shirt, white shirt with Lev Echad logo, looked just like the one I'm wearing now. They were holding their back, and the girl was smiling. So I said, okay, another photo of one of the tens of thousands of volunteers that are working all over with the families of reservists, with the evacuees, with everyone that is in need. But then she recorded a message, and she told me, this is Shoah, my daughter. She's 12 years old, and it's the first time she smiles since October 7. And the only reason she smiles now is because of your volunteers that's supporting her from October 7 until now, that are playing with her and being there with her. And then I understood what's our real mission. It's not only to mobilize and to recruit the volunteers to be around, but it's to restore the smile of the people. And that stayed our mission since then. And I can happily say that we restored many smiles from October 7 until now. Every time that we were needed, we showed up. The story of Shoam and Enav is one story, but we have tens of thousands of stories like that of families that from the Gaza envelope or families from the north, or in the last two operations, and even this operation, families that lost their houses to an Iranian missile. Just 2 days ago, I went to Tel Aviv after the missile struck Tel Aviv, and hundreds of houses were destroyed by the missile. And when I was walking around, only our volunteers are allowed, or our volunteers or soldiers are allowed into the destroyed houses. People lost all of their belongings. And someone went to me and told me, I lost my house. It's over there. It's totally broken. I don't have my eyeglasses. And I'm looking for eyeglasses since the morning. 4 different stores couldn't do the same eyeglasses. Can you please bring it to me? I told her, come with me. We went together into the apartment and took her eyeglasses from the 3rd floor of a destroyed building with our helmets on us. It took us 10 minutes. This is the time that they allowed us. And she got her smile back because she could see. So this is the kind of things that we are doing. We are restoring the smiles by volunteerism. And we believe that by that, we build a stronger and a more resilient Israel.
Thank you, Tomer, and hold those thoughts about what you're doing now because we're going to get to that in a minute. Before we go to Rachel, though, just really quick, how many volunteers in the network of Lev Echad, or have you worked with since October 7th?
In the data we have 30,000, but we mobilized. We started our platform only 4 months ago, so we mobilized since the beginning of the war 140,000.
Amazing. Okay, thank you, Tomer. Rachel, can you tell us the story of how, again, the needs of the reservist families and kind of take us up to just before this war?
Okay, so thank you. I'm happy to be here. And kol hakavod, really. The fact that you guys keep showing up, it's a big deal. It's not obvious. And I think that this whole idea of showing up, that's a lot of what reserve duty means. My story starts with my story. My husband did a lot of reserve duty, a lot. It used to be very hard for me. I was always career oriented, and every time he would go, I would stack up and everything. But when war and organize everything, babysitters, but when war breaks out, he gets a phone call and he goes. He puts his uniform on, kisses goodbye and leaves, and you're stuck at home with your babies in a war with a lot of uncertainty. So over a decade ago when I was and I'll just say that I didn't have a lot of help. Like my parents had a hard time, whatever. I had to struggle and figure it out on my own. And during Protective Edge 12 years ago, I was deputy mayor of Jerusalem. And Protective Edge wasn't like October 7th, but still, there were a lot of reserve duty, called in. They were drafted, and everyone was thinking, like Israelis usually do, let's send packages to the reservists and, think how we can help them. And then I said, what about the families? Because I remembered my experience. So we started in Jerusalem from my office in the city council. We started this program of basically volunteers that come and help the families. And the idea is that there's a pair of hands that's missing. Okay, so if it's helping with the children, and if it's dog walking, and if it's laundry folding, and if it's meal cooking, and everything that you need basically to continue your routine life. And I'll get back to the routine life soon. So we did that during Protective Edge. Protective Edge was 6 weeks. It seemed a very long time at the time. And we did it only in Jerusalem because I was deputy mayor of Jerusalem. So we organized it for Jerusalem. We had no idea that basically we're holding a pilot for 9 years later. October 7th, when it broke out, I wasn't in any I wasn't in any official duty. I wasn't a member of city council. I wasn't a member of parliament. I was working on establishing a relationship between Judaism and democracy. I was writing a book. I had think tanks. That was my area. And I was wondering, what am I supposed to do? And while I'm hesitant if to start the same kind of initiative, I got on Facebook a message from a woman asking me, are you going to be doing the same thing? Because 9 years ago was so helpful. And then I had my first, now I have my fourth. And if you can help, it would really mean a lot. So I said, okay, this is like Bashert. If someone asks me that, I guess this is what I have to do. I posted a post on Facebook. I opened a WhatsApp group and I said, whoever wants to help reservist families, they really need help. Come join us and we will help you and we'll do it together. And really, I had no idea what this would mean and how it would be. Today, we're working throughout the country, helping nearly 40,000 families with an organized network of 20,000 volunteers. And we started by helping the families with what I said, the basically pair of hands that's missing, and let's see how we can organize volunteers so they can help the families in these everyday chores. But the way we organized it is that we have city coordinators that they're in touch with the families and they're supposed to coordinate the volunteers. As time went by, because we worked for such a long time, these city coordinators became the go-to on everything. And basically what it means, it's not only that you have someone to help you with what you're missing, you need this help or that help, is that you always know you'll never be alone. There'll be someone there for you no matter what. So if you come back from your parents, late at night, and you get locked out of your apartment because you forgot your house keys at your parents, if you write to your city coordinator, someone will come and help you. You never find yourself crying in your car on your own, because when you're on your own taking care of babies and your husband is away and is in war, and it's been that way for so many months, it is so easy to feel alone. And this is a huge part of this resilience building piece, that you know that you're not alone, you know that you're part of a community, and that means a lot. I'll say that the Army held research after a few months trying to figure out what makes reservists come back to get to the rounds. It's called rounds. You come for a round for 2-3 months, and then you come again for a round. And I'm talking about the beginning of the war, and when they realized that it won't be short. And the research showed that there are 4 reasons that, that can predict, or four issues that can predict if people will come again for another round. One is not in the order of importance. One is how the army is organized, that they don't drive you crazy. Come back, go this, do this. The second is the way your boss treats you. Okay, the issue of reservists. The third is how your family feels, if your family feels safe. And the fourth is how your community treats your work. Now, basically, at Ha'ogen for reservist families, we are taking care of 3 and 4 because we're mobilizing the volunteers to help the families. And therefore, we're also making sure that the families feel protected. And we also organize the volunteers to come and help. One of the things that's very important to understand about reservist families is that these are people that are not used to asking for help. They won't ask for help. They're used to being those that help. There is a say in Israel that in Israel, a third of Israelis volunteer, a third of Israelis go to the army and do reservist duty, and a third of the Israelis, they, hold the Israeli economy. The problem is it's all the same third. So basically, this is the third. These are the people, this is the backbone of Israeli society. We're talking about our teachers, our doctors, our lawyers, our high-tech people, our engineers, our social workers, our business owners. These are the people that are really holding the Israeli economy. They're used to being the volunteers. They're not used to asking for help. And what we needed to do is to help these people ask for help and to be there, not in a way that help feels like, feels like help, but that it feels like we're part of this big community. You're doing everything you can to protect us. So we're going to show up and be here for you. And that's the way we're going to work together. One of the challenges is that we have the same volunteers that came in sometimes to volunteer for, a day or two. They had no idea that they're, or for a week or two, like Tomer talked about October 7th or October 8th, how everyone was out there. These volunteers have been with us for over 2 years. They didn't know what they're signing in for, but we keep saying, just like the reservist families had no idea what they're signing in for. And we're talking about 20,000 volunteers that are there all the time, doing everything they can to make sure that the reservists feel, the families feel safe. The last thing I want to say is that we have a huge responsibility for the reservist families, because if they can't handle this long-term burden, and, I said my husband did a lot of reserve duty and it was very hard for me. Everything he did, like none of it can compare to what these families are going through. The numbers of days we're talking about 300 days or 400 days, it's literally a year of being in reserve duty out of 2.5 years. We're talking about parents that go to the army and they have a newborn, and when they come back, the newborn is already 2 months old this is very, very difficult. And if these families, if it's too hard for them, and if they get held back in their career, in their families, if they divorce, that's something we're dealing with. If the children have the time, it's just too hard for the children. If all of this is happening, So we're going to be in a big challenge for Israeli society in a long run. I'm talking about strategic challenge because this is the backbone of Israeli society. So our responsibility towards these families isn't only because, they're doing it for us and we need to help them, but it's also if they fall behind, all of us are going to be in trouble. The state of Israel is going to be in trouble for a long time. And that's without talking about the security, even the economy. Like, think about it. You have this huge portion of the best of Israelis that is dealing with this huge challenge. So we're holding and we're keeping this work for the families to make sure that they can handle this time. As time went
So,
by, I'll just say one
sorry,
last
Rachel.
sentence, okay?
Yeah,
As
sure,
time
of
went
course.
by, it's okay. We realized that their needs are not only with the volunteers. And today we also have emotional support in cooperation with Sheba Hospital. We have financial support. We have every form of support that we hear from the families that is needed. We work to establish and organize it. And we're a very young organization in that sense. So we keep changing as time, we develop as time goes by to understand what is needed on the ground, and we make sure that we can give the families what they need. So that's it. I'll stop here. I can go on.
Thank you. Yeah, and you will. I mean, I'll have
It's
some more
okay. It's
questions.
okay.
I just want to, I think like many of us, I mean, I'm here in Israel, but I sort of have been immersed in it maybe more since Sunday, since I arrived. But many of us in the webinar want to get a sense of like what life has been like in the last 4 weeks. And particularly, each of you have talked about the infrastructure, the fabric, the DNA of volunteerism and of civilian response that has been maybe not created, but has been nurtured and continued since October 7th. And both of your initiatives are examples of not like one and done's. And there were some of those after October 7th. They lasted for a few months. Their purpose had passed and they
Yeah.
closed, and that's good. That was fine for them. But there was also this need to have more of an infrastructure. So I think, Tomer, just for a very few minutes, give us a sense of the last 4 weeks, what the needs have looked like, what the volunteers and what the Lev Echad response specifically have looked like, and any other reflections on this time. And Rachel, I'm going to ask you to do the same in a few minutes.
So very soon it's going to be 4 weeks of war, another phase of the war of 2.5 years, almost in total. The routine of what's going on, I mean, this morning was a good example, but I don't want to go only for Israel is now divided to the northern part that are fighting also with Hezbollah, Kiryat Shmona, Metula, and all the kibbutzim around it, and Nahariya, and all the other parts. So the other parts, we don't have schools for a month. I don't know how many of you are parents for kids that are still either in kindergarten or elementary or high school. So 4 months without any kind of schools all over the country. You can't really go for long distance because if the alarm catches you on the way, then the only thing you have to do is go out of your car, cover your head, and pray to God that the missile will not be around you. But we look on a daily routine of 5 to 10 alarms in the country. That's all Israel. But yesterday I went to Kiryat Shmona, and Kiryat Shmona can be 5 or 10 alarms an hour. And in Israel,
In the
when you
north,
get
on the northern border, just to
in the north
clarify,
of
Tomer, right in the northern border, where
in the
they have
Lebanese
10
border,
seconds to get to a shelter, not 90.
sometimes they will hear the boom before the alarm goes on. This is how short of a time they have. And there they can have 10 alarms in 2 hours. If I could show you a video, I would show, but people are sleeping in shelters, not in a shelter inside like a safe room in their houses, but in public shelter in beds. They are there. They didn't. I met people that didn't go out of shelter for 22 days because they are afraid. So the routine is crazy in the north, and it's hard all over. We already had 5 places with extreme hit of an Iranian missile. When I say extreme, I mean it's bigger than 250 kilo of a bomb. So Tel Aviv 2 days ago was 100 kilo of an Iranian bomb. Arad and Bet Shemesh and other places are half a ton. We mean like 2 kilometers from where the missile hits the ground, glasses are broken. And this is where the people of Lev Echad are entering. We are getting to those areas. I'll try to be clearer even. We have 3 missions. One is to help the families with kids all over the country. And we have volunteers that are in the shelters playing with kids, mainly in the north, but also all over. 2 is the emergency response for those missiles that I will go into detail soon. And 3, I'm a reservist myself, and it's a family of reservists. So we got 2,000 requests of people to clean their houses before Pesach. 1,500 were already done. I hope that we will make the other 500 before Pesach. But about the missiles, when a missile attacks a place, it doesn't just destroy one house. It's a radius of 2 kilometers that is being exploded. Windows are broken. Doors are getting ripped out of the place. And mainly people are in extreme shock and charada, and they are really afraid. So what our volunteers are doing, we arrive to every scene between 30 minutes to 1 hour after the attack. And we come with our volunteers and we go together with the municipality, with the local government, and with the Home Front Command. We go with them, we map the area, we understand where we can go to and it's not risky. And our volunteers are knocking in the doors of the radius where no municipality can go in the first time as a first responders, and checking the people, first of all, how are you doing? 4 volunteers coming with smile, asking you how you're doing after your house is being destroyed. It can change all of your reality. And I spoke earlier about bringing the smile back. When your house is destroyed and 4 volunteers in white t-shirt coming to you and telling you, we are here with you, putting their hands on your back, you're not alone, it changes the whole experience. And it means a lot, because if we want to overcome the evilness of the world and to really overcome the Iranian regime, the main people that are paying the price are the Israeli people. The home front is paying the price. And if we want the home front to continue and pay this price and accept those missiles and this routine of alarm and everything that we are going through in the last month, we must be together and we must show resilience. And the best way to be together and to show resilience is to show up and be in the field and volunteer. So in every place like that, we mobilize the youngsters, the young people of Israel, to come and show up and be together with the people that their houses are broken, to clean the glasses, to take something out of the house, just like I told you before about this woman with the eyeglasses. No other organization than Lev Echad could take her eyeglasses out of their house and let her see and bring her hope back. So this is the kind of things that we are doing, alongside of the fact that we give many parents all over the country 2 to 4 hours of relief when, as I told you, there is no schools. So as a father to 4 kids, the older are 9, the youngest is 4, I know what it means to be alone with 4 children for so long. So these are the main missions of Lev Echad, to come to those areas that were hit and assist them and bring hope where the Iranians brought evilness, to help the families all over the country to breathe and have some time, and to support our dearest soldiers. Me, myself, I'm a reservist. I've been in the last 2 years to Syria, to Gaza, to Lebanon. I spent over 300 days in uniforms. So I have a deep understanding of what it means to be a reservist family. So this is the 3rd mission.
Thank you, Tomer. And actually, like, a friend of mine told me, who didn't know about this webinar, that her 17-year-old son was heading to Arad yesterday, or maybe the day before. Arad is the site, you probably know who I'm talking about. Arad is the site of a major missile attack, as probably everybody on the webinar knows, that displaced hundreds of people and injured 100 people, and he was going to join in the volunteer effort. So at this time that schools are closed, it also offers young people an opportunity to volunteer. So we don't have a lot of time left. So Rachel, just if you want to add for like maybe just a couple minutes, how just to reflect on how this last 4 weeks have been like for the reservist families, I'm going to ask you each a quick question, and then we're going to move on
Okay.
after you reflect for a couple minutes.
Okay, so I'll be brief. This mission broke out on Shabbat, on Saturday. And this is after these families have been doing 300, 400 days of reserve duty. And for them, it was, it's another round, but it's also a harder one because it wasn't expected. It's again, this, you get the phone call, you need to leave. Immediately, Shabbat, we sent out messages to all of our families saying, don't forget we're here. You're not alone. Doesn't matter what happens. We're here no matter what. That's number one. Since then, our volunteers have been mobilizing every week over 5,000 dinners to families that, just to get Shabbat dinner organized or in the middle of the week. We've been cleaning houses for Pesach. It's almost Passover. People have to clean their house. Orthodox people have to clean their kitchens. How do you do it when you're on your own with the kids? So we cleaned over 1,000 kitchens throughout the country. We have every day, we have activities on Zoom for the families. We have over 7,000 children have joined these Zooms like daily, just because this is a way that the parents can continue, the mother or the father, whoever is at home, to continue with their life. Our mission is to make sure that these families can continue dealing with what they're dealing with, no matter what. And it's very hard and it's emotionally stressful. And it's, think about working when your kids are at home with you and your husband or wife are away. It's a very, very big challenge, but we're there. And we also have our volunteers that come in and help and play with the children and take care of what has to be taken care of that in the house to make sure that the husband or wife can continue with their life. I'll end by saying, what does a doctor do that has to go to the hospital at 6:30 every morning to make sure they arrive for their shift at 7 o'clock? Who comes to be with the children? And what we do with these kind of families is that we have this, organized base of volunteers that they come in every morning. Everyone takes 2 mornings a week. They come in 2 mornings a week at 6:30 in the morning to take care of the children. They wake up the children. They become what we call wannabe grandparents, and they come in and they take care of the children, and they're there and they take care of the children for the day to make sure that the doctor can go to work. Because as this war is going on, we need the wives or the husband of the reservist to be able to go to the hospital and take care of the people that are wounded in this war, wounded by the bomb. So I'm trying to give you like the idea of how intensive it is and how it's like in so many ways important for Israeli society. So this is what we've been doing since the war broke out. We're going to continue being here for the families. And I'll just say that for us, even when it's not war in Iran, there are 50,000 reservists in every given moment. So our work is throughout this past 2.5 years. It's ongoing. And according to what the Army says, it's going to be at least for another 2 more years as intensive.
Thank you, Rachel.
Leadership.
I think, yeah, thank you. We have about 5 minutes in this part of the conversation before our briefing, so I'm just going to ask us to like zoom out for just a minute or two each. Somebody asked a question, and anyway, Tomer, I wanted to ask you about, you have a larger vision around civilian volunteer service in Israel. You're talking about a national volunteer platform, like that could be sort of akin to a true civilian reserve. In a couple minutes, just give us a flavor of the vision, and we can send out some more information to the group on here.
Okay. As I said, I'm a reservist myself, and it's very clear to me that every time the country calls me, I will come and stand and do whatever is needed. And as I said also, the people of Israel showed up on October 7, and in every time of emergency, it's easier for us to recruit volunteers, but always the spirit that we uplift the spirit in times of crisis, and we are there, it always disappears in times of routine. So the real vision on the long term of Lev Echad is to build a civilian routine of reservists. We aim to a reality in which every Israeli volunteer for 2 hours a week. There is no one in Israel, even the prime minister can volunteer for 2 hours a week. And this is why we started the platform, Lev Echad app, We have this application in the Android and in the Apple Store. We called it at the beginning a Tinder of volunteerism. I don't know if you're familiar with the platform, but you open the platform and then you swipe missions. It can be a family of reservists. It can be an elder that nobody visit for a long time. It can be to volunteer in a hospital. It can be to serve food to family that doesn't have food. Many, many, many missions together with the municipalities. And the real goal is what I've seen in the last month. And I think that's the reason why the prime minister came to us in one of the sites and said, I want to encourage you in what we do. And the president of Israel came to us and said, I want to encourage you in what you do, because they saw the spirit of the volunteers. And they understood that with this kind of spirit, the future of Israel will be good. So what we want to do is to preserve this spirit of volunteerism, of showing up, of being there for everyone that is in need. We want to preserve it for the routine time, because this is the best way to ensure Israel for decades forward and to ensure the resilience of Israel in times of crisis and in times of routine. And we have the platform to do so, and we believe that we can do so.
It's also a platform, Tomer, that I think what Israel has done is really an inspiration to the world, the way that like civilians have stepped up into volunteer positions, and something that could even be shared in the future.
The next goal after it works here, we want to bring it abroad to, first of all, to the Jewish communities of the world, and then to broader communities.
To be continued. And Rachel, I just want to end by asking you, just for a short, so you've served in public life, you've served on the Knesset and the City Council, you're in the NGO sector. This is like, there are thousands of miles that separate us on this with the people in the webinar. But yet everybody cares a lot, no matter where they are, about the future of the country, about supporting the needs of Israel. And so just like a short piece of advice or a request on how you feel like people who are here can best uplift the lives of Israelis now and in general, people who care so much. What's your advice? Short advice.
Yeah. So I say, you asked me earlier about leadership, like how can
Yeah.
we do the pipeline of
Yeah.
leadership? And I want to
Yeah.
say, whenever someone comes up to me and says, thank you, this is, life-saving and it's so important what you're doing, I say, it's not me and it's not us, it's our nation. And I think there's something about our nation that we know how to show up and how to be there for everyone that needs us. And I think that what we need to do is we need to figure out how to take this idea that we know how to do as a community and as a nation, and to turn it into and to connect it to the leadership of Israeli society, because we're dealing with the fact that there is a gap between our leadership and our people. And I think that this is a very strong asset that we have. How can you be part of this? So I think that and this is something that we're thinking of, how do we mobilize this idea that we know how to show up? How do we mobilize it to so many other areas that are needed in the American Jewish community in Israel? This is a notion that we're very strong at, and we need to figure that out. And if the American Jewish community wants to be part of it, I certainly think that when you come to Israel, give us a call, let us know, and you can come and volunteer. And I know how important it is for the reservist families to know that it's not only their neighbors and friends and co-workers that see them, but every time, and I'll say since the war broke out, before the war broke out, every time I would say thank you to this and this federation, or thank you to these and these donors, all the Israelis would be like, come on, tell them to make aliyah. Stop sending money, make aliyah. And since October 7th, every time I say something like that, people get up and just clap and applaud. People are so moved by the fact that we're not alone. So I think that whenever you're in Israel, let us know. We'll find something for you to do, and letting the families know that they're not alone, that people from thousands and thousands of miles away care about them. I think that's the miracle of our nation. So let us know, join us. Let the Israelis know that you're here for them. That's huge.
Thank you both so much, Rachel and Tomer. I think you both are the miracle of our nation. I think that leaders like you who care a lot and have devoted themselves to mobilizing and inspiring others to make a difference, including me, and I know many, many like me, it really makes a big difference. And we just have great partners on the ground and we really appreciate you and couldn't do it without you. We are going to send out information about both the needs and the programs that Lev Echad and Ha'ogen, as well as some other programs in after this webinar or, in the day to follow. And we'll send, maybe some information, Rachel, about how people can be in touch and Tomer to be able to volunteer because we do know of people that want to do that. So thank you very, very much. We really tried to do a lot in a short amount of time because we wanted to leave a little bit of room at the end for a briefing, a situational briefing by Dr. Udi Sommer. And I want to, in a minute, Susan Lapidus, the director of the Murray Gallatin San Diego Israel Initiative, which was founded by the Leishtag Foundation and is now supported by a growing consortium of donors and brings visiting professors and visiting academics and artists and residents to campuses in San Diego, strengthening the connection between our communities. Susan is a really great partner and leader in our community. We so value the work of MGSDII. And Susan, can you give a brief introduction to Dr. Summer and then maybe Udi, you can update us for like 10 minutes about what's going on the ground.
Thank you,
Susan?
Charlene. Yes, thank you, Charlene. And Achel and Tomer, thank you for what you're doing in Israel. I will be in touch because I'll be there in late May and I plan on volunteering. So we're here in San Diego doing what we can to support the state of Israel through the universities and our future leaders in America. Udi Sommer was just here at UCSD. For the first time, we were able to bring a political science professor to teach two vital classes that hadn't been taught. One was politics in Israel, and the other was the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We were just amazed, and also it supported what we were doing because over 175 students enrolled. And we couldn't have asked for a better professor to come teach it. Udi's from the University of Tel Aviv. He's the founding head of the Leadership Center there and the Center for the Study of the United States, funded by the Fulbright Program and the U.S. State Department. He has extensive experience. He's an amazing professor and a leader. And we're very grateful that he was here teaching it. And we are going to do our best to get him and other professors into the UCSD system and the California state system and continue to educate our American future leaders. So Udi, are you ready to go?
Yes, Udi's on. He's ready.
Great.
I can tell.
Thank you. Thank you, Udi.
Hi guys. I'm really happy to be here. It's been quite a change coming from San Diego to Tel Aviv with a rescue flight. Israel is the only place where you have a rescue flight into the war zone rather than out of the war zone. And now being back with you is wonderful. And Charlene, in 10 minutes, I can very easily summarize everything that's going on with the
Summarize
war.
everything.
No problem.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having me, Charlene, and Susan. Thanks for having me in San Diego for the duration of the winter term, and Rachel and Tomer, Alan. I heard the very end of what you had to say, and what you do is really inspiring. So thanks. I'll give as a political scientist, we can talk about the war at various levels. I'll try to really maybe briefly discuss what has been happening and what is happening right now. I'll try not to speak in the future tense because nobody knows what's going to happen. But you might be able to think about potential implications based on what I'm saying. So I guess the big story first and foremost is the big rivalry of our time, which is the United States and China. So in many ways, you can think about the current war as another stage in which the Trump administration is sending a signal that just like the 20th century was the American century, where America won the Second World War and then had the upper hand at the end of the Cold War. America is planning to have the 21st century be the American century as well. We know that China is rising, and I think for the Trump administration, "Make America Great Again" or "America First" or any of those slogans or however you want to call them, at the end of the day, boils down to America remaining the superpower, the number one superpower, even if there's other superpowers. And in the case of what the Trump administration has been doing in the past even 3 months, if you think about Venezuela. So that's pushing China and Russia out of the Western Hemisphere and making sure that America has complete control there. It's not just geostrategically; it's also having control of the oil reserves and energy, etc. In Venezuela, and Iran is the next stage in that sense, right? If you think about the axis going from Beijing to Moscow to Pyongyang in North Korea to Caracas in Venezuela and to Tehran in Iran, then these two final links in the chain, right? Both Caracas and Tehran are knocked off or on the way to be knocked off. And of course, it's not just geostrategically. If you control the oil, if you control energy, both in Venezuela and in the Persian Gulf, then the number one issue of our time, which is AI, we know that AI has a large appetite for energy, and in many ways the impediment for moving forward with AI may be energy. This is why some people like Elon Musk have the idea of having AI being developed out in outer space, where you get solar energy, unlimited solar energy for free. So putting Elon Musk aside for now, if you control energy in the Persian Gulf on top of the Venezuela oil, then that puts you at an advantage on AI, which is, again, there's various dimensions at which America and China are competing. AI is a critical one. So that's one level where you can think about that, and at any point, just listen to what the Chinese are saying. They don't talk very loudly, but what they say is very meaningful. And listen to what America or the U.S. administration is saying about their competition with China, what they expect from China. You can really get a lot of information about how the war unfolded and how it will unfold based on that. So that's the biggest level, I guess. The biggest the number one rivalry of our time. Another level at which you can think about that is the regional level. So the regional being the Middle East. Iran has been a very powerful element creating what they call the Shiite axis. We're talking about various axes today. So the Shiite axis went through Damascus and Beirut and Gaza and Sana'a in Yemen, various proxies that Iran created in order to create buffers. So the number one trauma for the Iranians was the Iran-Iraq war of the 1980s. They wanted to make sure that whatever happens, they push the war away from them physically. And they created an axis of buffers that was supposed to do that. The war right now is not at their doorstep, is inside their house, as we know. And the number one, and in that sense, they have been with this axis, and they still are the number one agitators in the region. But I guess the big but is that we don't know how this war will unfold, right? If there's a regime change in Tehran, that would be a huge achievement for Donald Trump at the level of the rivalry with China, at the level of what's happening in the region. The problem is that militarily, in many ways, the war was well planned and well executed. Although we know there were some places where some of the challenges were not properly anticipated, such as the closing of the Straits of Hormuz. But in political terms, I think, it's not clear what is the theory of regime change here. If you look at the cases where regime change was successful, where America was able to exercise regime change, so obviously Germany and Japan after the Second World War come to mind. Two excellent, huge successes, huge as the president would put it. Another case, but these are countries that had had democratic institutions before the Second World War, whether in the form of the Weimar Republic or the Meiji Constitution in Germany and Japan, respectively. And another case where there had never been a democracy, and there's still no democracy today, is Syria, where you have the strong interests of the major superpowers of the region and the world. The President Ashara has the backing of Turkey and Saudi Arabia in the region, and has the backing of the United States of America at the global level. So you created an alternative in Syria, an alternative elite. Okay, that's the important point here. There is this expectation that the Iranians public is going to take to the streets, and that's going to generate the change. And of course, the public is important, but that theory of change has hardly ever worked. The real theory of regime change is when you create a stable, institutionally founded alternative elite that is able to take over instead of the current regime. And that has failed, as we know. It has failed, or it did not materialize, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or elsewhere. And therefore, the political outcomes are critical. If they're able to replace this regime, fantastic. If this regime stays in place, then there's the devil that you know and the devil that you don't. We knew the former was the devil. It's not, nobody thinks that Khamenei was anything but the devil. But we knew a lot about his and his regime's tendencies. This is not a dictatorship, right? You decapitate the head. It does not necessarily undo the regime. Just it's not Venezuela and Maduro. So that's on the side of the Iranians. On the side of other parties in the region, and I'm going to talk about Israel in a second. On the side of other parties in the region, the war if you can think about the war as hitting the reset button. I mean, if you think about any of the Gulf states, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Bahrain or the UAE, they never say never, but they are unlikely to regain their status in terms of oil production, in terms of tourist hubs, in terms of financial hubs. I mean, the change is so. I mean, especially if the regime remains in place, even if it's different people. If the regime of the Ayatollahs survives this war after fighting the U.S. Army and the Israeli Army combined, then that means that the kind of leverage that they would have on regional politics, on regional geopolitics, the fact that they can open or close the Straits of Hormuz at their will, the fact that they can shoot ballistic missiles at major hubs in the Bay, etc., in the Persian Gulf. Sorry, not in the Bay. That would be transformational, and I don't think necessarily in a good sense for the status of all those countries. And these are countries that are, one, the major U.S. allies in the region, other than Israel, and two, they are the Sunni axis that was supposed to be the basis for the diplomatic architecture that we call the Abraham Accords. Okay, so the Sunni axis, where Israel and those countries would form. I'm excluding Qatar at this point, but UAE and certainly Saudi Arabia would form the basis for the alternative of this Shiite axis of proxies, of Iranian proxies that I had mentioned earlier. And the last level. And Charlene, I guess that I'm out of time, so I'll do
We'll give you another 2-minute reprieve.
Okay, so one minute to summarize everything about Israeli politics, and another minute to summarize everything about American politics. Easy peasy. So when it comes to Israeli politics, for Netanyahu, this was supposed to be the pinnacle of his career. And the fact that the war is becoming increasingly complicated. Today we've had, I stopped counting, but I think 10 different rounds of missile attacks from Iran, and you can't count the number of missile attacks from Lebanon, including in Tel Aviv, not just quote unquote just in the north. That means that this war, it's not June of 2025, right? It's not the Operation Midnight Hammer and the Israeli Rising Lion operation, which together really we know now, did not obliterate the nuclear program, but definitely was considered a military success. The three goals or four goals that Netanyahu had, which was to eliminate the nuclear program, to eliminate the ballistic program, to eliminate the access of proxies, and to initiate a regime change, none of those has been achieved yet, or all of those are yet to be achieved. So that's on the Israeli side. On the American side, I think that Trump, we talked about the competition with China. We talked about the regional considerations that America has with its allies and with its enemies. So there's all these geostrategic aspects. There's the political aspects. By the way, both for Netanyahu and Trump, both of them are facing elections later this year. But I think for Trump, and with this I'll finish, for Trump, there's also the psychological perspective. Now, I won't, I have a master's in clinical psychology, but I would not say that I understand the psychology of President Donald Trump. But I think one thing, at least, that's very clear is that he wants to feel like he made history, that he changed, that he made a difference. And the fact that he took on the regime in Tehran, I think, is a way for him to show that. For 47 years now, both Republican and Democratic presidents have been trying to deal with Iran, sorry, in different ways, never militarily. Trump did that successfully to an extent in June of 2025, and I think he was hoping for a swift success now. I mean, what he had in mind was, not obviously June of 2025 when America was involved for maybe half an hour or so directly, right, with American airplanes in Iranian airspace. And probably not something that took, hours, such as the operation in Venezuela when they took Maduro in. But I think what he had in mind was something that was going to unfold pretty quickly with the regime collapsing and with him being able to claim success with all the benefits that we said, the message to Beijing, taking over the oil, etc. And things have become complicated. It's become complicated because of Hormuz. It's become complicated because the enriched uranium, the fissile material, is still unaccounted for. It's become complicated because there are certain elements or certain points of leverage that the Iranian regime has yet to use, whether it's the Houthis in Yemen or potentially closing the Bab el-Mandab Straits, which would put even more strain on the global economy, and the fact that he's an elected president, so he cares, unlike the dictatorship or the dictatorship, the authoritarian regime in Tehran. He cares about his voters. He has to care about them. He cares about the economy. He has those things that not just the American economy, but the global economy, etc. So for all those reasons, I think that Donald Trump will has some serious decisions to make now. And to be honest, and again, I don't have time to develop the whole idea here, but I don't see an easy way out, either in the short term or in the long term. If he decides to pack up and leave in a matter of a week or two, there's going to be a lot of with the Iranian regime still in place, weakened and hurt, but in place. There's he won't be able to. I think it's going to be very hard for him to claim a huge victory or a huge success. And if he stays for longer, then of course the big fear is a quagmire with an endless war in the Middle East. So we know this is a war, it's in the Middle East, and the last thing Donald Trump wants is for this to turn endless. So I guess
Thank you.
we'll all think about, what are the consequences, but thanks for listening to me. Hopefully it gave some clarity.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you for taking up your time to do this. Thank you all again for being on and for staying on an extra few minutes. Thank you, Rachel and Tomer. You inspire us with building this infrastructure that we're going to need, it sounds like, in the short and long term, and we need also in the US. And thank you to the Iranians for sparing us from sirens for the last hour so that we could have this webinar in full. And we wish you a good day and everybody safety and success. So thank you for being on. And please, we will send out a follow-up. Please don't hesitate to contact us at the Jewish Community Foundation for any ideas for giving, for strategic collaboration on your philanthropy. We love talking about giving to Israel and any other aspect of giving. And so me and the team really welcome your emails, calls, and contacts. Have a good day and a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy holidays,
you.
everyone.
I have a problem with my camera. Thank you. Bye.